Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Okay, thank you for connecting me. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a very special program with the San Francisco Night Ministry, Kevin F. Edler, and Miracle Messages. Night Ministry is continuing to celebrate its 60th anniversary, and we are so glad to have as collaborators Kevin F. Edler and Miracle Messages, who are celebrating their 10th anniversary. Let's have a round of applause for our friends. You will hear more about Kevin and Miracle Messages and his book when we walk by later this evening. You will also get to hear more about Night Ministry later this evening. But now, I would like to invite forward for you Singers of the Street, and first their director, Ben.
Well, thank you all for having us here tonight. My name is Ben DeShazo-Couchot, and I'm the director of Singers of the Street. Just recently joined them, and this is actually our first time going out together as a group. We don't have all of our people here with us tonight, but we brought a good group of folks with us. And I also have the privilege of serving as the care line director at San Francisco Night Ministry. So I'm here in two roles, and I'm so glad that these sister organizations are able to come together tonight. Singers of the Street is a group of unhoused folks, homeless individuals, formerly homeless, and also allies who come together first to provide connection and music and community, and also to destigmatize and break down barriers surrounding homelessness. And so we're very glad that we were invited to join you here this evening. I'm going to invite our choir up to the stage here. And as they're coming up, we're going to sing for you a round you might be familiar with, which is called Dona Nobis Pacem. It's something that we deeply need in this world right now, and right here in San Francisco in this community. Dona Nobis Pacem, which means give us peace.
Go!
So we'd also like to get you involved in a little bit of music making a joyful noise. And so this I'd like to teach to you all is the San Francisco Night Ministry chant. This has become one of our traditions, and so we're happy to teach it to you this evening. So we're going to begin just by patting on our laps like this with both of our hands. And we say, San Francisco Night Ministry. San Francisco Night Ministry. San Francisco Night Ministry. So that's the first part. And what we're going to do, these are called ostinatos. They're little rhythmic and melodic things that we can stack on top of each other and make something together, just like kind of like the round we just did. So the next part is That's the next part. And we have a third part as well. But first, let's see what happens when we put those first two parts together. Ministry. Oh, wait, no, I'm giving it away. I'm going to have to change the words now, so it's a surprise. It starts with San Francisco Night Ministry. Let's try that. This half of the room is our San Francisco Night Ministry group, and this half is our I Am group. Here we go. San Francisco Night Ministry. San Francisco Night Ministry. San Francisco Night Ministry. I am. So this one is Ministry of Presence, Ministry of Presence, which is what we seek to be and do in the community as we increase access to spiritual care on the streets and on the phones at night, providing a ministry of presence. And actually, why don't we change it tonight and say 60 years of presence for the 60 years San Francisco Night Ministry has served this community. Let's all sing that one together. 60 years of presence, 60 years of presence, 60 years of presence, 60 years of presence. Are we ready to stack them all on top of each other? I will let you self-identify. Are you a San Francisco Night Ministry? Or I am, or 60 years of presence? We're not the only ones who are going to have fun with this instrument. You get to sing along with it too. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, begin. San Francisco Night Ministry. San Francisco Night Ministry. San Francisco Night Ministry. I am.
My name is Molly Mitchell, and I'm the Development Director at the Night Ministry. Thank you all for being here. We are really excited to have a series of listening events this year. It's our theme, Listen In, Listen Big. We are so grateful to have Kevin F. Adler here with us and kind of kicking off this series. Whether you're joining us here in person, thank you for making it out on a lovely evening. You may be joining us via live stream. We are live streaming this performance and this talk. Or you might be watching us at a watch party later on. Welcome. We invite you to follow us on our social medias, to check out our website if you're interested in learning more about the Night Ministry, what we do, if you want to join us for a night walk at any time. It is still our 60th year anniversary, and there are many ways to join us. Whether you want to join us on the street, whether you want to join us online, whether you want to join us maybe by thinking about your legacy, your gifts, I'm the person you might want to talk to about that. So I will be around afterwards. After we are all done here, we will be having a little reception downstairs, and we'll have some Bob's Donuts, which are phenomenal. I don't know if you hang out late at night here in San Francisco, but Bob's is an icon, a classic, and they're right around the corner. And we'll have some champagne or some sparkling cider as well. So we would love to see you downstairs, and I'd love to meet you if I haven't already. Tonight, our very own John Brett, who you saw earlier, will be chatting with Kevin F. Adler. And what we both have in common with the Night Ministry and with Kevin's work with Miracle Messages, at its core, is this foundational understanding of who we are as people. That we need more than just 3 meals a day and a roof over our heads, although that's a great place to start. We need more than that. We need a bit of recognition, a bit of honor, a recognition that maybe we are more than what we've been through. At the Night Ministry, we do that on the streets and on the phones. And Kevin's organization, that you will hear about shortly, believes some of the same things we do about social bonds, how much that matters to not be abandoned, to not be left alone in the midst of all you're going through. I am going to invite up Kevin. Kevin F. Adler is an award-winning writer, author, sociologist. He's the author of When We Walk By. Many of you maybe got the sheet that we were handing out. Yeah, you can come on up. He's the founder of Miracle Messages as well. And he helps people who experience homelessness expand their social network and kind of build on financial security. Is that right? Great. So Kevin's going to talk to us a little bit about Miracle Messages, a little bit about his book, and John's going to do some interviewing. Yeah? All right. Thank you, Kevin.
I might be mic'd.
You are all mic'd up.
Am I mic'd up? Can you hear me?
Great.
Wow.
Well, thank you. I'm going to hand it off to you now. And yeah, we'll invite John up in a moment.
I'm going to button this so I can put it on. Thank you. We don't have a chant at Miracle Messages. Can we borrow? Can we borrow yours? So many beautiful faces here. Can you all just take a moment to enjoy my view? Look around at each other. This is a good-looking group. Where 2 or more are gathered, right? 2 or more are gathered. I thought I'd just share, I want to basically spend most of my time talking with John, and then also my friend and colleague, Taro, is here tonight. And you're in for a treat. Taro is joining here, coming in from Oakland to share a bit of his story as a member of the Miracle Messages Advisory Council, someone who has lived experience of homelessness. And so he's a brother in this work. But you've asked me to speak for a few minutes. I thought I'd share a little bit about my story and how I got into this work. So I had an uncle who spent 30 years on the streets, my Uncle Mark. He lived on the streets of Santa Cruz, California. And the thing is as a 10-year-old, 12-year-old boy, I never thought of my uncle as a homeless man. He was just a beloved member of my family. I knew that Uncle Mark would occasionally disappear for weeks or months at a time. I knew that any time we'd get a collect call, anyone remember those things? My dad always said, take that call, say yes, and put me on the line. And I knew that after we had a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner, there'd always be a moment of giving a big hug to Mark and then either bringing him to the Greyhound station, get a bus back to Santa Cruz, or my dad driving him back. But I never took any time as a 12-year-old boy to think what his life might have been like when he wasn't at our Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner table. So I was in college, 19 years old, and living my life, and I get this phone call one day from my dad. And he called me and he was crying. He said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but Uncle Mark has been found deceased. He was 50 years old, which I found out later is about the average life expectancy of someone who's chronically unsheltered on the streets, about 30 years less than it should be. And so, we had a small service for Uncle Mark up in Santa Cruz at a church there. My grandpa and my grandma came up. My grandpa, I found out later, always kept a phone line with the same number so that Uncle Mark could always call home. He never missed a birthday. Every year he was on the streets, I always got a birthday card from him. Always just signed Mark. Always. Never missed a birthday. I'm worse at birthdays than he was, that's for sure. So it was the first time I saw my grandpa, and I think the only time I ever saw my grandpa cry. I was at this service, and they played Danny Boy. And when they played Danny Boy, my grandpa, a World War II veteran, very stoic, just kind of stood there and wept. And I remember at the service, kind of sitting, towards the front and looking, and a few folks were kind of in the back row of the pews. And I didn't recognize them. They wore clothes that looked like a little bit tattered. They kept to themselves, and before the service ended, they left. And I remember looking at those individuals and just thinking, my uncle had an entire life outside of our family home. I don't know anything about it. So a few years went by. I was in San Francisco, and I'm sitting in church, which I didn't do every Sunday, so don't, get the wrong impression. I'm sitting in church that day. Must have been Easter, right? And the pastor gets on, and he says, okay, I have a project that I want to do with you as a congregation. And we're doing a prompt, and the prompt is, who is Jesus? And you are going to answer that question with some kind of art form, creative expression, communication, something like that inspires you. So I'm like, okay, this is on my heart. This is an interesting prompt. I go to this little gathering of people answering the call, and pretty quickly, we're going around, and everyone is like, okay, I'm going to paint a picture because I'm an artist and Jesus needs a painting. And I'm like, Jesus does not want me to paint him a picture, trust me. Like, that is not what he wants. And then, the next person's like, I am a singer, and I am going to sing a song for Jesus. And I'm like, ooh, Jesus does not want that. You heard me, the choir, you guys were very good, and I could not join you. I would not be a good member. Maybe you'd take grace on me. So anyways, I'm sitting there, and I have a background both as a sociologist as well as using a little bit of technology to try to show our shared humanity. Back when we actually had ideals around social media and smartphones and what it could do to bring people together, I was in that mode, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, gosh, how could we use storytelling tools to help people like my Uncle Mark? I got this question on my heart, almost from above. And it sat with me for a few days. And the question I'll just share with you is, how would Jesus use a smartphone? How would Jesus use social media? How would Jesus use a wearable camera? You know, and I thought about like the cat videos I usually watch, and surfing pigs on GoPro, thing. And I was like, okay, Jesus might get a laugh out of that, but I don't know if he'd be using it for that. Like, I actually think he'd go outside the church walls and find the person who's maybe not in the congregation and sit down and spend some time with that person. So I got this thing on my heart where for 1 year, I invited 24 individuals experiencing homelessness to wear GoPro cameras around their chests and narrate their experience of what life is like on the streets. The basic premise was simple. I just walked by you, you're still here, what's it like to be you? What do you wish I knew? I watched dozens of hours of pretty heartbreaking footage. Two things stuck out. First, every single time you see someone walk by, if there was a child that was walking by, the kid never just walks by. The kid always tugs on mom or dad's sleeve, points at the person, asks, why is that person on the streets? Can they come live with us? Do they need a home? And I remember seeing most of the time the parents scold the kid, say, dangerous, that's impolite, don't do that. It just made me think, gosh, maybe there was something we knew instinctively as children that we've forgotten as adults. Second thing, every single time someone wore the camera and they narrated their experience of what life was like, they never just talked about themselves, they always at some point talked about somebody else. A brother, a sister, a former girlfriend, son or a daughter, a classmate, a neighbor, a coach, mentor. And often, the way they spoke about this person, that person was no longer in their life. There's a little bit of a tinge of sadness. So I heard this over and over again, and one person in particular said something that changed my life. And they said, I never realized I was homeless when I lost my housing, only when I lost my family and friends. Never realized I was homeless when I lost my housing, only when I lost my family and friends. This made sense to me, and it really was the first articulation of an idea that I've come to call relational poverty as an overlooked form of poverty. We think of poverty, we think of the lack of financial resources. That's a form of poverty, but also not having someone to call at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., feeling totally alone, feeling isolated, disconnected, having a family situation that's unsafe. It's not safe for me to reconnect to those folks. So anyways, I heard this thing, thought maybe I could just walk down Market Street, go up to everyone I see who's visibly homeless and say, do you have any family you want to reconnect to? So that's what I did, 2014, December, a few days before Christmas. Walked down the street, and that's how I met Jeffrey. Initially, Jeffrey was sitting there talking to himself. He had a bottle of not Kool-Aid next to him, and I just kind of walked by. I walk by. The book is called When We Walk By. I walk by. I walk by all the time. I still walk by. But with Jeffrey, I said, I'm going to talk to every single person I meet. So I kind of got next to him, sat down, and said, do you have any family or friends you'd like to reconnect to? And it was the first time that he looked me right in the eye. And he said, I haven't seen my sister, my niece, my nephew, my dad, Harold, my sister, Jennifer. I'd like to reconnect with them. So I didn't know what to do, so I pull out my phone, and I say, would you like to record a video to your family? And he says, yes. I hit record. Records this incredible video. It's on our website, miraclemessages.org. You can take a look at it. And I go home that night, and then I get home, and I'll tell you, for the next few hours and the next few days, I didn't do anything with that video. It just sat there. Because I didn't know if I was going to be interfering. I didn't know if Jeffrey was telling me the truth, right? Like, I'm not proud of that. But that's where I started. But after a few days, I heard this, again, calling, you got to do something with this video. I get online. I found a Facebook group connected to Jeffrey's hometown. posted the video there with a short note. Within 1 hour, that video was shared over 100 times. It made the local news that night as the leading story. Classmates and neighbors who knew Jeffrey, they posted, and they said, I work in construction, does he need a job? You know, I work at the congressman's office, does he need health care? The community came together and in the coming days raised over $5,000 to bring him home. And in the first 20 minutes of the post, his sister got tagged. And we got on the phone the next day, and she told me, Jeffrey has been a missing person for 12 years. Broad daylight, downtown San Francisco, a few days before Christmas. So, got a chance to help Jeffrey and Jennifer reconnect on a phone call. And then after that, they got reconnected in person for the first time in 22 years. And I quit my job. I was working education tech. Said, this is more important. So that was 10 years ago, and that was the first what became Miracle Messages. So that's the story. I want to invite John up, and I'll tell more about where we're at today, but that's it. Okay. It just felt like a little throne, and I kind of was like, I'm going to give my...
I was trying to give us some color, you know, some of the night ministry color, so I stole some of the pillows from the office.
That's right.
You know, especially if we had ended up in the wooden chairs behind us, I wanted to make sure that you'd be comfortable.
I'm very comfortable.
So,
I just sat on there.
Right. Thank you. I'm already tearing up, right? I'm feeling soft. I'm feeling vulnerable, and I think that's right where we should be when we think about our friends, our loved ones, our neighbors in the streets. You speak in your book about the importance of vulnerability. And I wonder if you could say some more about the use of vulnerability in sharing story, and what it can do to transform how we think about fellow citizens, neighbors, loved ones in the streets.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's a great question. So one thing, just to lean into this question of vulnerability, the first time I met someone who volunteered to wear the GoPro camera, we met in broad daylight in front of Molly Stone's in the Castro, right, kind of Castro district, broad daylight. We met through mutual friends. We arranged to meet. And actually, a guy named Adam Riker. Anyone ever meet Adam in the streets? No. You might recognize him in the video if you watch our videos. And as I approached Adam, I found myself instinctively reaching my hand into my pocket and grabbing my keys as a weapon. I had never done that before. I'm a 6'2", straight white Christian male. I generally am not mindful of needing to be extra cautious in spaces, right? I have a lot of privileges baked into that. I reach into my pocket and grab my keys as a weapon. And I share that again, not out of any kind of false pride, or I'm kind of embarrassed about it to this day, but that's where I started. And I think it's important for all of us in whatever positions of power we're in to speak very openly about our own journeys on this issue. You know, it's an ongoing process. So to use a parallel that I think is maybe easier to understand and just as apropos. So, you know, my wife got married in the last year. Yay, love! Woo! You look surprised. You're like, you got married? There's hope forever. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. I was joking. Anyways, my wife and I, we have a pandemic love story. We got married in the last year. And she's African-American woman and Native American, okay? And so early in our dating, we were, walking down the street holding hands, and someone yells this pretty racist comment it was directed really at her, but both of us, right? Like they made a comment about me and my appearance and her and the whole thing. They go off, and I was like, wow, I can't believe this happened, right? Oh my gosh. We keep walking, and I look to my wife, Taja, and I say, I can't believe that happened, and that's awful, and the whole thing. She's like, well, something like that happens to me once a month. And in that moment, I was like, oh, you and I can walk the same city streets, but those are different streets for each of us. And I kind of worked up the courage to ask her a question that had been on my heart since we started dating, but I just wasn't courageous enough to ask her. I said, Taja, one of my biggest fears is I'm going to say or do the wrong thing. And without missing a beat, she looked at me and she said, don't worry, you will. Right? Like, of course you're going to say or do the wrong thing. You are not a black woman. You are not a Native American person. Of course. What's not what you need to think about is not whether you say or do the wrong thing. It's how you're going to respond when we have a conversation. Are you going to talk down to me? Are you going to go on your own journey to do some research and ask questions and think about it? Or are you going to, disown or disavow my experiences, right? I think with homelessness, I think there is a similar path. Like, of course I'm not going to know anything about homelessness. The best thing I did on this journey was starting from the old Socratic saying, the only thing I know is I know nothing. I had an uncle who was homeless. How many people have uncles or aunts? That doesn't give me any credibility. Like, that's my pathway in. So I just think we both need to lean into stories, conversations, and relationships, what Brian Stevenson says of getting proximate with neighbors who have experienced homelessness, because it's their table, not our table. It's their table, and we should be having that mindset. And just as important, I think it's too easy in the world right now to feel like we have to get everything right, to beat ourselves up. Oh, I can't say or do the wrong thing. I don't want to mess up. Oh, you're going to be canceled. You've screwed up. You've done this wrong thing. That's not how I learned in my life. So I think there's both vulnerability in asking and going on our journeys, but there's also vulnerability in saying, here's where I'm at, and I'm imperfect. And, let's work together to build a better tomorrow for all of us. So it's my soapbox.
Thank you. Yeah, because I think that the good people out there who want to help, and even the people that a lot of times don't want to help, but you might catch on a good day, want to know that what they're going to do is right or matters or is going to make a difference. And so that beginner's mind that you encourage, and the centering of the experience of people who are or have been homeless does make sense as a central guide. You talked about paternalism and toxic charity. What might you suggest to the good church people or the good Sangha people here tonight or watching about how to put the experiences of people who are unhoused or have been first?
Can I read a little bit of my
Of course.
book? This is the Reading Rainbow portion of this evening. This is the paternalism chapter. It's page 62 if you end up getting a copy of the book.
And if you do get a copy of the book, this is one of the best authors for assisting people who ask questions, because at the end of every chapter, there's a little review. It gives you all the talking points. So you too can be an expert if you buy his book.
Yeah. I'm not as in demand as most authors, so just reach out to me, right? Is what I'm saying. Two little examples of paternalism. One from my own actions. There was a wonderful neighbor experiencing homelessness, friend of mine for many years. Some of you may have heard of him or met him, Ronnie the runner.
Yeah,
Ronnie Goodman.
Ronnie used to sleep at the Gubbio Project many days when I was working there.
He was a marathon runner. He was an artist, spent way too long in San Quentin. He ended up unfortunately passing away on the streets, I think shortly after his son was murdered on the streets, and he kind of spiraled down. But Ronnie Goodman, Ronnie the Runner, if you want to learn his story, it's worth checking out. So he was one of the first people to wear the GoPro with me, and we were doing an interview, and in passing on the interview, he said, oh, well, you know, I think I was asking him, like, what are your housing prospects? Like, how are we going to get you housed? And I think at that point, you know, we have this mindset, you know, housing first. And housing first, yeah, is the best practice, but sometimes I think as a society and as practitioners, we think of it as housing only. And housing first is a 5-pillared strategy, the 5th pillar of which is community integration, right? And we forget that. So I'm talking to Ronnie, and at the time I, you know, probably was just housing only. So I was like, hey, Ronnie, what's your housing prospects? And he said, well, I have housing available to me if I want it. And I kind of was like, well, Ronnie, let's go get you housed.
Yeah, why don't you want that housing?
Why don't you want that housing?
Gosh, someone else saying that, oh no, I'm homeless by choice.
Yeah, haven't you thought about that? Like, let's go. I'll solve this problem right away, right? And he looks at me, he's like, well, you know, Kevin, the housing is available to me in a building and in a neighborhood where drugs and alcohol are present 24/7. I have a history of addiction. If I go into that housing, that is a death sentence for me. I will relapse and die. So I am waiting a few more years to be eligible for senior housing, and then I will hopefully be housed. So here I went from being very paternalistic, very judgmental, have my own notions of agency and choice, to being like, that's a really good perspective, Ronnie. That's a good point. For me, relationships, listening, conversation, that is the way to uncover this stuff, right? Like that's what enabled me to have whatever growth I have. So a contrast, you know, this is where I think a lot of people start on this issue. This is a fun section of the paternalism chapter with the title, Has a homeless person ever refused food you've offered them? You know where this is going. If someone did not know the circumstances of Ronnie's situation and just heard that a person who was living on the streets of San Francisco had declined free housing that was offered to them, they might be confused, frustrated, or angry. Perhaps they might use the story to affirm a pre-existing prejudice, assuming that Ronnie is yet another example of a person experiencing homelessness choosing, I heard the word, choosing to be homeless. Perhaps they might respond as Tanja did when a person experiencing homelessness refused a meal offer from her young son. She related the story in response to a question posted online, which is quoted in this section's subtitle. This is from Tanja on Quora, if anyone remembers that site. Months ago, 3 of my children, my husband and I, were at a taco/Mexican grocery store, and a man who seemed very homeless sat outside with a sign that said, I will work for food, help, please, anything will help. So my 9-year-old wanted to help so badly. We ordered him 2 tacos with rice and beans and a Coke and a water bottle. The man seemed irritated and told my son, no, I only want money. My son still tried to tell him to save it for later and keep it anyway. The homeless man refused, which absolutely crushed my son's big heart. I was so mad, hear this part, I told my son, see, some people just want drugs. We then just took the drinks and tacos home. It's been months since, and neither he nor I have given any homeless person anything since. I tend to give out cold water bottles at lights, but haven't been lately. There's a part of me, I've read this a few times, I'm starting to feel bad for Tanja. I feel really bad for her son, that's the lesson. But there was a last thing I'll just say on this. I want to hear your next question. There was a study done from Stanford University where they were looking at people on whether, at like a department store at Christmas time, whether they'd go out the door where the Salvation Army bell ringer was, or whether they'd choose to go out the other door. So it was basically like, how much effort will you take to avoid the Salvation Army bell ringer? So as you can imagine, most people did whatever they could they walked an extra like 100 yards. They're doing the 100-yard dash to get out the door where the bell ringer isn't. They don't want to deal with it, right? But what they did in the experiment is they'd then have a second bell ringer hidden behind the other door. So either door, you're getting a bell ringer. And what was fascinating is people who went out one door or the other gave charitably at about the same levels, the same rates. So the finding from this, and take a look at the study if you're interested in the whole setup, it's not that we don't care. It's that we're capable of caring so much and we're protective of our empathy. Because we know if we get close enough, we either will feel like we have to do something and then do it, or the thing that we're afraid of, which I think is what Tanja was trying to get at in her own words, is if you feel like you got really close and then the thing you had to offer wasn't enough or you couldn't help, and then you feel small, you feel like you didn't do it.
That immensity of need and what we don't think that we can provide is a huge stumbling block. I often talk about the violence of looking away and how amidst all of the other types of violence that people experience on the street, the violence of looking away, that repeated gesture of people walking by a little bit more quickly or walking across the street or tensing up even, reduces everyone's humanity. And one of the things that we can do is confront those fears and the internal shame that we might carry because we cannot do enough to alleviate someone else's pain. Your book talks deeply about shame and stigma and the experience of homelessness, and how many people are one paycheck away from becoming homeless themselves, and how many people do experience homelessness in this country, but don't look like someone that we think is experiencing homelessness. When I was at the Gubbio Project and minding that church sanctuary where people came in to sleep each morning, one of the first things I learned is how many people who are homeless are working. How many people with a well-kept backpack blend in to the streets or the bus, that they're on their way to odd jobs or to work in the kitchen, but aren't making enough money to pay rent.
The real question isn't why are so many people experiencing homelessness, it's why more people aren't homeless.
Why aren't more people
There's so many
homeless?
broken systems, so many people that are a paycheck away from not paying rent. And the book is divided into a systems breakdown, so it looks at income inequality, where out of the 3,000 counties in the United States, there's not a single county where someone who's working full-time and receiving federal minimum wage can afford the fair market value for a 2-bedroom apartment, and less than 1% where they can afford the fair market value for a 1-bedroom apartment.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%, less than 1%.
No, I was just repeating what I heard.
Less than 1%, 45% of people experiencing homelessness, 45 to 50% have some kind of job or income. Another 40% are on a form of disability, aren't able to work. So, these notions in our country that maybe, I'm not an economist, I can't say how it benefits, the stock market, like these ideas of rugged individualism and pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Right, there is innovation that's possible there. But if we believe as a society that if you are poor, let alone you're experiencing homelessness, and we have only a narrative of individual responsibility, does that mean you're deservedly poor? Like, these questions of deservedness don't get talked about nearly enough. So, the book also spends equal time talking about breakdowns in what I call our shared humanity. Shared humanity. So that's stigma, shame, that's individualism, that's exclusion, where people are not permitted to live and breathe and sit and eat and use the bathroom, as we all need to as people. But that part of homelessness, we talk a lot about homelessness as a society. We talk very little about housed people. It's always about homeless people.
Right? Why are we putting the mirror over there? Why are we putting the spotlight over there? Why aren't we looking at our own selves a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I say that we have a gross domestic product in this country, and it's homelessness, and it's gross, and that the system is built for the outcomes that it has. And so I think that when we look at systems, we have to look at ourselves and how we fit into them and support them, and begin asking some bigger questions about the assumptions, even the metaphors that we are bringing to understanding that data out there. One of the most persuasive and fundamental messages in your book is the importance of connection. Could you talk about connection as a means of intervening in the scourge of homelessness, relational poverty, and what we might do? There's not any one single answer. Oftentimes we want that one single policy answer that's going to help solve homelessness. Well, we're not going to give you that tonight, sorry. You'll have to keep talking. But one answer that we do have is the power and importance of connection.
Yeah, and maybe I'll answer that by sharing the journey of Miracle Messages from Jeffrey to today in just a few words. So, over the last 10 years, Miracle Messages, it's not just me wandering the streets, capturing videos, going on social media. We work with organizations like SF Night Ministry. We work with referral partners. We're building chapters in different communities. We have volunteer staff, all of whom will take not just video messages, but could be audio, could be an online form that we have, a paper form that we have that you can fill out, and even a hotline phone number you'll remember forever, unfortunately. So get ready for a little living in your brain moment. 1-800-MISS-YOU. That's our phone number, 1-800-MISS-YOU. So a message comes into our system, and we have a network of volunteer digital detectives who make phone calls, write letters, do internet sleuthing to locate loved ones, deliver messages, reunite families. That's led to about 1,100 reunifications since we started, which is great. Thank you. So, and this is to answer your question, so that's part of it. But then we've heard pretty early on, and we also, and I'll share this because this could be a SF Night Ministry partnership. From day one, we've received messages from families looking for their missing relatives who are homeless. We have a database of 2,000 people. We get messages every day from families saying, my brother Bill is somewhere in San Francisco. I don't know how to find them. We're trying our best to try to partner with organizations. Let's work. Here's the data. Like, there's folks who are looking. Not everybody, right? Sometimes family is part of the problem, not part of the solution. So in cases like that, this is where I'm
not
gonna
everyone
go.
wants or should
Not everyone wants or
reconnect
should.
with family.
I have learned that. There's people in my family who don't talk to each other, and that's for a good reason, right? And that's my family. So the question early on was, okay, relational poverty is poverty, I get that. How are you gonna help me? My family doesn't want anything to do with me, or that's not safe. I'm fleeing a domestic violence situation. They don't accept me because of my sexual orientation. How is this okay, right? And we were like, okay, well, first, we say chosen family. It's never like reconnect to mom and dad. It's, whoever is chosen. But let's create another program that tackles relational poverty from another angle. So 5 years ago, in the early months of the pandemic, we created a phone buddy program called Miracle Friends. Miracle Friends matches volunteers all around the country and even all around the world for weekly phone calls and text messages with neighbors experiencing homelessness. Kind of like a digital pen pal. It's not mentors, it's not big brothers, they're neighbors, they're friends. And Taro, I have a friend myself, Taro.
Connection is most authentic between equals.
Yeah. Taro can share about his experiences in the program. But what I'll share to answer this question, so we go from reunions, from unhoused neighbors to family, then families to neighbors experiencing homelessness. We then go to phone buddies and building that. It's not end all be all. There's many for your peer support. There's other forms, right? By having the phone buddy program, we started hearing from volunteers and from the unhoused friends saying, hey, you've asked me to be friends with this individual. How am I going to be friends and now trust this person and love them and turn a blind eye when they don't have enough food to eat tonight? Or when they don't know how they're going to get gas to get back into their car to get to work on Monday. When I am friends with someone, I show up for my friends. So either I'm going to show up by giving this person some money and taking care of this, or you will. But someone's got it. I'm not turning a blind eye. And so we created a program called Miracle Money that initially was $50,000, where we invited the volunteers in our program to nominate their friends. We were able to select 14 individuals experiencing homelessness to receive $500 a month for 6 months, no strings attached, in what turned out to be one of the first basic income pilots for unhoused individuals in the country. Within 6 months, 2/3 of those individuals had secured stable housing. They used the money better than I could have used it for them. Money was spent on food, housing, childcare, storage, and a lot of charitable gifts, including from Elizabeth, who received the first Miracle Money, and first thing she did was make a donation to Miracle Messages. And I said, Elizabeth, you didn't need to do this. This wasn't part of the plan. And she's like, well, I didn't do it for you. She said, I did it for myself, so I could once again feel the dignity of supporting causes I believe in.
Yes.
Yeah, so now we have given out over $1 million, $101.3 million, no strings attached to neighbors experiencing homelessness throughout the Bay Area, throughout California, and we're continuing to expand that, hopefully to get to a place in the next few years of $5 million a year, no strings attached. So those relationships led us to be a better organization and figure out, let's do the least administrative, infrastructure, programmatic thing that gets the most help to the most people the quickest. So.
Yes, least infrastructure, most direct help. Beautiful. Well, this is an excellent moment to invite our other panelists to the stage. Our chairs are a little bit wonky because we're avoiding having this artwork be the center of our video. And so we're a little bit sort of separated here, the two groups. You can come over here with me, and our two other panelists can come forward. Angel Batten has been a San Francisco resident for over 8 years and is a certified community mental health worker. He participates in street outreach twice a week, connecting with young adults ages 18 to 30 as part of his work with At the Crossroads, an organization focused on addressing homelessness and advocating for long-term support. And Taro McMillan, the second, is dedicated care and outreach specialist in the Bay Area. Rerouted from Southern California, I love that, rerouted, yes. With 10 years of sobriety and involvement in lifestyle recovery, Taro uses his life experience to inspire others on their journey, including as an inaugural member of the Miracle Messages Advisory Council. Beyond work, family, theater, music, and gardening round out Taro's peaceful life. Thank you both for joining us. So because I only have one microphone to share, I am going to ask you to share with us a little bit about what resonated for you in what you heard earlier this evening, and a little bit about your work and what you find strengthens you for your work in outreach and connecting with people, and what you have found to be true about things like connection and moving towards the places that you want to be for yourself and with others as we look at issues around homelessness or housedness.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, John, and thank you so much for writing this book. I think one thing that I was able to resonate with was when you mentioned how you don't have to look homeless to be homeless. I think for me, when I was homeless for 2 years in my early 20s here in San Francisco, I didn't realize that I was homeless until I started realizing that like I didn't have a place to call home, you know. And it sucked when I had to like be on the streets just waiting for somebody to say hi or somebody to acknowledge my existence, or when I was charging my phone at some hotel, or you know, trying to find the next hookup because that's where I was gonna sleep that night, you know. And I think that I think just you saying that really did resonate with me, because I think the work that I do now, it's so important to me now, and that is because I know that the people that we're reaching out to don't look like your typical, what you would think is homeless. They're still out there on the streets, looking presentable, but are living on the streets. So I feel like our goal is to try to reach them and build those relationships. And in the last almost 2 years since I've been with At the Crossroads, I have learned so much about these young people who are living on the streets, because they would rather be on the streets than to be in a shelter, you know, for personal reasons, of course. And I think it's really important to continue to go out there on the streets and try to meet them where they're at, right? Not trying to, you know, point them in a direction where they don't really want to go. And I think that in the last 2 years, I've learned that this does work, meeting them where they're at. And somehow they're still alive today. So that's really good.
Hello, everybody. I'm Terrell McMillan. Like he said, I'm rerouted from Southern California. I won't bother you all with the slide that my life took to end up in a bad situation. But I'm up here because of the kind people of San Francisco. When I landed up here, I didn't have anybody. I just came up here on faith. I was sponsored by a church organization. I stepped out on faith, and the kind people of San Francisco, the Bay Area, all welcomed me in with resources, kindness, friendship. Kevin was one of the people I met that offered me not just a sign up for a program, but someone who would check on me. And not when I say check on me, I thought what most people would say. Oh, somebody's gonna call and say, what's going on with you, and be a check on. But my buddy ended up saying, how are you? And connectivity, we connected on a level where it didn't sound like a social worker. She was my friend. She wanted to know, how was I doing out here in the Bay? Was I adjusting to the Bay? I got sick up here in the Bay. I wasn't used to the weather. I wasn't used to the price up here. But, you know, when she called and I'm coughing, she knew to stay on the line with me a little longer and find out what I needed to get better, and if I would, next week, did I do that? And I appreciated that. And I felt like her kindness was a program that I would like to be involved with. So when my friendship buddy, it never ran out, she still calls me, but I volunteered for more of the outreach program. And that brought me to the Bill Graham Center, Polk Street, the Civic Center. I'm rewarded by walking up to somebody and telling them, have you heard of Miracle Messages? They say no. I said, we help reunite families with people who haven't experienced homelessness. And first thing I say is, are you from out here? You'll be surprised how many people say they're not from out here. They say that they came out here to visit and got caught up. Everybody gets caught up. What we offer is like, let's contact your mom. Do you want to talk to your mom? You want to talk to your sister? That's why I like saying, tell me about your hometown. I get it. I love that. I'm from Los Angeles. You wouldn't know it till I tell you that. But I've heard Michigan, I've heard Florida, I've heard Pacific Islands, I've heard San Francisco a lot. But what I'm trying to get is that helping someone reunite with their family can be the difference between them sitting there not doing anything and you seeing them every day to getting up and being a person like me my name's Terrell now. You won't see me on the streets. You won't see me standing out there no more because I have a friend out here and I have people who support me. And that's why I wanted to be a part of this mission. Thank you.
You both do very difficult work. Going out into the streets, trying to find people that you haven't met before, or trying to find people that you are continuing in relationship with, can be a heavy labor. It can be heavy on our shoulders and on our hearts. What animates you? What keeps you going? And what have you experienced in your outreach that you have found to be most valuable to reach people?
I think for me, what keeps me going or what keeps me motivated, as you can see, I'm brown, I'm Latino, and I'm gay. And so I think that I don't really see that much representation on the streets when it comes to this kind of work. And I think that for me, that is what motivates me, knowing that I have enough confidence, enough compassion, enough faith to know that I can be the person to go out on the streets and try to meet other people that look like me. I speak Spanish, so that helps me a lot to connect with Spanish-speaking folks who will otherwise be disconnected or not fully brought into this kind of love that we have to offer. And so I think that that is what keeps me going. Of course, there's challenges because, of course, being queer also comes with its complications, right? The judgment, all the name calling, but I think that in those moments, I just have to think about, what would Jesus do? What will my higher power do in this moment, right? Do I talk back or do I receive them with love, right? Do I continue to see myself with love? And I think that has really given me more hope and more motivation to keep going and to continue this work. And yeah, I think that is one of the reasons why I continue to do this work, really.
Thank you. That's great. I can relate to all that. I can relate to the lonely feelings. I can relate to the sad nights. I can relate to feeling like I had failed. And when I interact with my unhoused neighbors, those stories that come back feel like those same stories. And I know that you can turn it around. I like to interact with the homeless, my unhoused neighbors because I was them. I felt that I had messed my life up and I had doomed myself until God sent people into my life to tell me, you can get up from here. There's doors that you can still go through. All the doors aren't closed. It was just me that told myself that I had messed it up and closed all the doors. And I'm one of those people now. I will tell you, you can get up. I can help you find a recovery program. I understand recovery. I understand reading, literacy. We can help. I can read the form for you. I can help you. So that's why I'm rewarded by when somebody tells me that story. It doesn't fly over my head. It sits on my chest. It sits on my heart. And my heart tells me to stop and talk to them, look someone in the eye. I always look people in the eye because when you walk by, it feels like I'm not a person. But when you interact with someone, you look them in the eye, I guarantee you'll feel what the right thing to do. You won't even have to think about it. You'll be moved. And I'm always moved. I don't even think about it now. I just say, tell me what you need, tell me what you're going through, and the solution presents itself, which is not that hard because San Francisco is full of resources. All I have to do is sit there and listen to the story and tell them, have you met my friend? Have you met my other friend? I'm inspired by hope with you. I'm inspired by hope with you, and I'm inspired by faith, because faith, when I had given up on myself, God didn't give up on me. God told me that there would be people that I would meet along the way. I just had to listen to them and say yes. Say yes. I won't leave without a yes. I won't leave without a yes. I'm gonna give you some socks. I'm gonna give you a phone number. I'm gonna give you a card. I'm gonna leave without a yes. I'm gonna come back next week. You're gonna be all right? Yes. Then I can leave. That's all I can get. But I'm inspired by that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, each of you are one of those people now, right? You are someone showing up. You are someone developing connection and trust. You're not just a social worker who's, checking a box, but the people that you work with in the streets, because people can read if you care about being where you are and doing what you're doing. And I bet that folks respond to you because of that. As a sort of final question before we wrap up, I'm wondering, well, first, I want to say that sort of inspired by the themes of the night, I'm going to personally share something that I haven't shared before, and that I myself was homeless definitionally for about 3 months during my trajectory through seminary. Hiccups, processes, procedures, not having some family support, that I could, at that point in my life at least, rely on. Found myself couch surfing and being with friends here for a few nights and then other friends for a few nights, and in a relationship and seeing him maybe more than I might have otherwise because, I wanted a place to be and a roof over my head. But I want to ask you if there was a moment or a person that you remember that was pivotal in helping you move from the streets to where you are now. Something that reached you, maybe gave you faith or confidence in yourself that you could do what you needed to do.
I got sick when I came up here, and I thought it was a bad choice. I thought I had messed up again, and one of those, I had self-doubt. Doubt was creeping in. I knew I could sit there and tough it out. I knew I could probably go get some medicine. But what I needed to do was to reach out to somebody who could give me some soup, who could tell me they could tell me during October and January, San Francisco is very cold, suit up. And I needed a friend. I needed someone who could tell me that I wasn't failing, because I was almost about that point to say, you failed again. And the connection I had made when I got here, numerous people, they kept me saying, are you going to work? How's work? Did you get the jacket? Here's a link to a food pantry. Those are the people that kept me going. There are too many to name, too many programs to name. I'm here because I said yes, and I got a jacket, ate more vegetables, I've adjusted to the weather. The hurdle I'm facing now is it's expensive out here. When we talk to when I talk to my friends outside, they say, I would love to go and live in a nice apartment, but I can't afford this amount of money. I can't afford this amount of thing. But my buddy Kevin mentioned I was a recipient of one of those programs, and that extra income, when I went and applied for a program, for an apartment, my basic job would have got me consideration. The extra income put me in the bracket where I was able to secure that apartment. So that's why I'm thankful for that. All of the resources, like I said, too many people to name, but I'm here amongst them now. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think about my friend Chris. So what happened after being on the streets for 2 years, they put me in a transitional housing program. And in those months, I met some other young men. One of them being this, this individual who was living with HIV. He was gay, and of course, he had religious trauma. And a bunch of other things, right? And I realized how much I was able to resonate with him, right? Living with HIV, being young, and just having religious trauma and everything, and all of that, right? And finding out that, for him, the best thing was to commit suicide, right? Like, that really woke me up. I didn't realize up until then that I was just waking up every day, just waking up every day, and just doing it, right? But him dying sort of reignited my will to live. I didn't realize that I never wanted that. I just sort of lived, but I actually wanted to live a life that was beyond my wildest dreams. So I think of my friend Chris, and I think of everybody else, in that group that either died at some point or are continuing to live their lives, right? And I think that those are the people that really stay in my heart, who continue to remind me that there was a chapter of my life that was dark, but that there was some light in the end. And I think that's what I try to bring to the streets, that, no matter where they are in their lives, that, that they are also light to so many of us, if they don't see it themselves in that moment.
Thank you to each of you for using who you are and the stories of your lives to connect with others in the world and to make change and to address with deep humanity others with whom we walk. No one on the streets should walk alone. So thank you to everyone who's here. Thank you to everyone who is tuned in this evening through streaming or may watch at a later time. We are now invited to go downstairs to the Monroe Room and have a little light reception. But before we do that, and he's gonna kill me for this. He's gonna hate it, but I've been trying to get him to an event for 3 years, and this is the first time that he's here. So Shelby, I know you hate me for it. In the back, we have Shelby Wildman, and Shelby is someone who also uses his life experience to change lives. And I consider Shelby a saint of San Francisco because he is out every week, sometimes every day, visiting encampments, visiting people in the street, engaging people through Facebook and social media to support his work. And he walks transformational connection. And I've seen things that he does as an individual citizen to impact lives and inspire others. So, through my program, Faithful and Fabulous, my version of sainting is to welcome someone in as a friend of the street. So, Shelby, And we'll get you one that fits you once I find one that fits you. But here is a night ministry sweatshirt for you as an honored friend of the street. And I know that Shelby always says it's not about him. Yeah, I know. Do you want to say one thing or anything? Just be kind. And so now, onward to the reception. Bob's Donuts and champagne and sparkling apple cider. If you need an elevator, it's through these doors. The most accessible stairs are also through those doors. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Can we do a quick photo? Quick photo? Let's do a quick photo. Oh, here we go. Selfie. All right, everyone's in it. All right, here we go. Ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yay. Okay. Excellent.